Our guest on this episode found time to join us on Finding 44 before his hectic winter TV sports schedule takes off. Jordan Cornette is one of the most versatile voices at NBC Sports, host and analyst covering college basketball and football, and now contributing to the network's golf coverage. A standout for Notre Dame during his own college basketball career, he is still the program's all-time career blocks leader. He also happens to be a great friend of mine, not to mention the doting brother of Butler basketball legend, the late Joel Cornette.
Jordan is leading the charge at the Joel Cornette Foundation, and he and the JCF team are doing really incredible things to support and advance cardiovascular health and research in memory of Joel. Supporters, including our friend Brad Stevens, Tom Izzo, and other basketball greats are lending their voices as well to support this great cause, and we're so excited for you all to hear from Jordan directly. Listeners, champion for change, Jordan Cornette.
So excited for my good friend, Jordan Cornette, broadcaster with NBC Sports, all things across NBC Sports, to join us on this week's episode of Finding 44. Jordan, lifelong athlete, now with a career in sports media. Your life has pretty much been defined by seasons. How do you describe this current season of life between your demanding career in sports broadcasting, a variety of roles at NBC, and then also as a father, as a husband, and then part of the Joel Cornette Foundation?
Well, Ella, it's a great question. It's good to be on with you and Chrissy. The great work you guys are doing with Project 44. And, we're all tied with the great city of Indianapolis, and more important, the north side there, with Butler, what Andrew and Joey meant to that place. So to come together like this is really special. It's a great question because you've got to remember what's first in those seasons. And as a wife, you get this, is you've got to be, husband first, father first, and then broadcaster, no matter what, no matter how cool the opportunity, how big the opportunity, has to mesh with family life. And I will always put family first. And there might be times throughout this interview where it intertwines back to the loss of my brother, but it goes back to, time is precious. It's of the utmost in terms of currency that you have. And wealth is nothing if you don't have somebody to share it with. And success is nothing if you don't have people to share it with. So for me, as I maneuver through the seasons and I adjust and stack our schedule, me and my wife Shays, we always try to put the family first and what makes sense, when they can travel, if we're traveling, to come together. And if I need to say, hey, it's a great opportunity, but I can't do it. So I always try to navigate the significance of family coming first.
Jordan, when you and your brothers grew up, you're all athletes. You played collegiately at Notre Dame, Joel, of course, at Butler. How did your work ethic as a student athlete prepare you for this juggling of seasons, the career family foundation? What did you learn at that time and growing up as a family, really, that you're seeing play out now in life?
Yeah, Chrissy, I had a guiding light, and that being my older brother. So there's a standard that I think is set with siblings in the pecking order of how they come. And so my brother was always the standard, whether it be athletically, academically, whatever he did, that was the bar. And luckily I had a guiding light that was very successful, that overachieved, that really presented what work ethic looks like to achieve your dreams. And so he was that guiding light for me. But again, who came before him? My parents. I was blessed with two great parents that are still happily married to this day. And so I've always had a standard to look to. I always had living, breathing role models to say, this is what it looks like. This is what work ethic looks like. This is what discipline looks like. This is what dedication looks like. This is how principled people move. And so I had that in my life, and that was really important for me to say, oh, I want to be a great basketball player? Well, I got to do what he's done. Oh, I want to be successful in life? Well, my parents got there through, listening to people that came before them, and they got a pretty good head on their shoulders. So I guess I do have to do this science project, or I guess I do have to look at these timetables a little bit longer and study because that's what I'm being told. And so for me, I had it easy. I always joke with people, look, I grew up wealthy. I grew up solidly middle class, but I grew up on third base because I had a great setup. And I had two parents that showed us the way. And I had an older brother who showed me the way. And I'd like to think, although luckily you can't bring him on here right now, but I'd like to think my little brother, I showed him the way as the middle of three boys. So that template was always in place for me.
Jordan, I was so fortunate to know Joel, very grateful, beyond grateful to call him a friend. I think a lot of us, those who are his teammates, those who are Joel's friend, who felt like he was their own big brother. He was always looking out for everybody else, right? Had everybody's back, was maybe giving you a push when you needed it or whatever it was. Wearing the shirt actually right now that says "We are still here." We'll get into the significance of that shortly in this conversation. But can you just explain the mission of the Joel Cornette Foundation that was founded in his memory? Obviously lost him much too soon back in 2016.
Well, Elo, you and me can both share a laugh about this because you and your husband both well know. A lot of people say, oh, we were best friends with Joey, and it's not shortchanging them. They did have that relationship with him. He was just so good at making a large swath of people feel like that, and it wasn't because they were one-offs. When he met you and he got to know you, if he saw the same in you that he saw in himself, you were his people, you were his tribe. And so he was very selective about who those people were, but he made you, once you were in that growing circle, he made you feel like you were part of his family. Obviously, I've known you, L.O., for years. I even knew you through the media side, even without Joey. But it's so funny. I'll go places and I'll meet someone and I'll be like, and they'll tell me they're super tight with my brother. I'm like, I've never even heard of you before. But it speaks to just like, he was such a warming guy. He's so warm. He was so inclusive. And that's what our foundation is based on, though. I guess that's why I'm getting off on a tangent, because it was all about inclusivity. It was all about lifting as you climb. Like, if I'm going this way, I'm picking you up by the bootstraps and you're coming with me. And so in the beginning, in the commencement of the JCF and its genesis, I should say, it was about giving those without opportunity. So we really leaned into raising money to provide for those who couldn't afford a higher end education. And we were trying to generate scholarship money to give young men and women opportunities. And in the beginning, we gave, as one of the young men, Lavelle Trimble is getting ready to graduate from the University of Alabama, which puts us at about 8 years now, which is crazy. Since we started this whole thing, we gave him his scholarship to St. Xavier High School, an all-boys Jesuit high school in Cincinnati, paid his way through. And he, achieved through high school, ended up getting some aid and scholarship money to go to Alabama, and he's about to graduate. And so that's kind of what our initial path was. We did that with a few kids. And then we wanted to kind of have an even greater impact. And so we partnered with the American Heart Association. We partnered with Duke Medical, some brilliant minds over there. And we wanted to attack the study of sudden cardiac arrest, which is what claimed my brother's life. He went to sleep one night and he didn't wake up. And so we don't want anybody to feel what we felt if we could have any hand in trying to prevent that. I mean, that was obviously a fatal loss for him, but it was a fatal blow for our lives. I mean, you never come back from that. I mean, we're living our lives, but that piece of me is forever gone. And so we wanted to try to do what we could to prevent that in other families and people in the world. And we've really poured in. We've raised over $1 million in working with the American Heart Association. It's become, our life's work. I always tell people, like, yeah, my wife works for ESPN. I was there. I now work for NBC Sports. But I work for the Joel Cornette Foundation. I work for my brother. I was raised religious Catholic, and I do believe in God and the higher power, but I pray to my brother every night. I know he's the one that's up there probably alongside God, but I pray to my brother, and I live my life for my brother, who I believe is in the likeness of the Lord now as he's up above. So, everything I do and how I move, I always feel my brother's judgment and my friend is watching. And this foundation, I take as great a pride with that as anything, that we've been able to grow this thing, that we've remained dedicated to it, because it honors my brother's life. And my brother's life was taken after 35 years, which is it's just disgusting to say out loud. And in his 35 years, I say it all the time, in his 35 years, he did more than 90-year-old people would achieve. So we lead with the foundation. It's me, my family, but extension of our family is some really good people that have helped keep us fortified with the foundation and doing what we're out there achieving.
Jordan, one of the things that at Project 44, where we try to be focused on, is this idea of inspiring a culture of yes. So whatever the cause is, whatever your platform is, be about something, right? Do something greater than yourself. Be here for other people, create that change that we need in the world, or, whatever it is. With the Joel Cornette Foundation and kind of your evolution of missions and areas of focus, how have you seen kind of that idea of showing up for others play out? Like, what's the ripple effect been for you all?
Chrissy, that's such a dynamic question because I think there's layers to it, and you know it real time, and you live it with the foundation, the great work you guys are doing with Project 44. Accountability is massive. I mean, you have to make sure that you guys are consistently putting forth, the opportunities. If we became a flighty foundation where it's like, after every year, I mean, there's fatigue. And you guys know it when you do your benchmark events, like, when we circle up at the end after our big golf outing that kind of concludes our season of events, and it's our benchmark staple outing, we're tired. But we have to take a couple weeks off and get right back to planning for the next year, because if we're not out there pushing the message and saying, hey, we're going to be back late next year, we're going to have our March Madness event, we're going to have that in Cincinnati, we're going to have our big golf outing, it's going to be somewhere in Cincinnati, we're going to do these things. And if we start to slack off, then you're going to there's going to be a donor fatigue as well. And if you give them any reason to say, well, they're not even all the way in it, so how are we going to continue to show up and give money and give our effort if the people running this thing aren't really about it? So we've remained committed there. I think what's so special and really truly embodies the spirit of my brother is it's not just Cornettes involved in this thing. There are some people that don't share our bloodlines that are so committed to this thing because they saw Joey in his 35 years and who he was. And they knew, like, he's not here to make that impact. So we've got to carry that forth as if he were here. And they've really taken it upon themselves. I mean, we're a small outfit. I mean, there's probably about 15 to 20 of us really doing everything. And I'd actually lessen that number to probably 10 people doing everything for how we're working. Nobody's being paid. But with our commitment, that's infectious. And everybody then shows up. I mean, when we do our golf outing, we're flirting with having to do a 36-hole spot because it sells out in 2 minutes. And I wouldn't say angry texts because they come from a good spot, but it's people saying, man, we got locked out again. We can't get in. It happened so fast. And it speaks to the buy-in across the board, which is very special.
Yeah.
How overwhelming is that support, and who are those who have impressively showed up? I know there are so many who have demanding schedules. They will drop everything to be there in Cincinnati, play golf, show support, and bring along so much awareness, so much education, and then a lot of funding for all of the different areas in which the Joel Cornette Foundation is impacting.
Well, I want to lead with these guys, and they're at the forefront, but there's definitely people alongside them. But given that you guys have a large Indianapolis following, Indianapolis has been great to us. Specifically, a couple of Butler Bulldogs have been great to us. It's Nick Gardner, who's been incredible. Scott Robish, who's been incredible. Avery Sheets, who's been incredible. 3 Butler Bulldogs that no matter what's going on with them, they're going to show up. And that's incredible, the effort that those guys make every year. No matter what's going on in their life, they're there. And they're recruiting other Butler guys to show up and be there. John Dedman, the sports information director, really tries to rally Butler to have an influence, whether it's through tickets for, or as a giving piece that people can bid on as a bidding item. It's been really cool to see that part of Joey's life buy into this and be an arm and an extension of what we're doing. And then, the biggest piece is the city of Cincinnati, where we grew up. It raised my brother. He was cultivated there, the man he became. Unfortunately, the young man, and that's where it ended for him. But the person he became was through our Cincinnati roots, and Cincinnati has held us down in such a supreme manner. It's humbling every year. I could get honestly teared up now talking about it because it's it's really impressive what Cincinnati's done and continues to do. Sorry, I didn't anticipate getting emotional, but we're emotional people.
Yeah,
I get emotional
absolutely.
thinking about him all the time. I got emotional pulling my shirt out today, thinking about Joel, and thinking about when we lost him. And that day, I had to go on air and talk about it and report it. And it was one of the hardest things I did that day. But I also immediately got a text from Nick that said, "I'm so glad that you were the one who could say that and could talk about Joel that day. And it is such a privilege to get to continue these conversations and remember him and celebrate him, this impact and legacy that he has." And part of that is the mantra of, we are still here, because Joel very much is still here. Those were his famous words when Butler was making that tournament run. Like, he had such a presence, and that is not just here on earth. He has like this incredible presence that lasts, eternally, through you all, through the foundation, through your son, who is Joey as well. How does "we are still here," that mantra, not only continue his legacy, but also really illustrate the mission of the foundation and what you all want to accomplish with this platform?
Geez, I feel like I say this every time. It's great questions from you guys. I could literally talk about this all MFing day. I mean, it's just, I love it so much. It gives me a piece of him. "We are still here" is rooted in Joey's stubbornness. I mean, it's just like, and anybody who knows him will laugh and chuckle. It's the audacity for somebody to think he and his comrades, he and his brothers didn't belong. Him and his Bulldogs weren't good enough. And I'll try and shorten this. Cornettes have a penchant for being long-winded. But when he was coming up and he committed to Butler, it was the best offer he had. And anybody being honest at the time would say he thought he was better than Butler's program at that point when he was being recruited. And so he committed there. But the day he committed, he said, this is gonna be the best 4 years. I'm gonna make this great. He thought he'd be bigger than that, and at that point, that was his offer. And his senior year, in his last high school game, he missed a crucial shot, and the chants were, "Where is Butler? Where is Butler?" Butler hadn't exploded. Now they have history; everybody's aware of that, but they didn't have a robust history, and certainly in that time, in the late '90s, they weren't a program to be reckoned with. And those chants stayed with him from that day forward. He said, "I'm going to make Butler a program that everybody knows and respects." And it became like his mission. And so with everything he did was stubbornness, was how dare people, I'm going to make people know this place. So when Coach puts on the board one preseason, and I think it was Coach Licklider, it says, we want to make the Sweet 16 or whatever he put out. And Joey said, "Bullshit. We want to win the national championship. What are we here doing these workouts for? Like, don't ever shortchange this program. No critics going to shortchange it. Certainly nobody in this locker room. And no pundit is going to tell us who we are. We're going to go out there and take everything." And so when I think it was Ben Howland said they didn't belong, and I always mess these names up. I think it was Ben Howland. I always say Behan, but I think it was Ben Howland. Mike Monser has corrected me a few times. I think it was Ben Howland at Pitt said this team does not belong in the NCAA tournament, Joey's senior year. Butler does not belong in. Give it to a Power 5 conference team. And then when they went on that run and they won that second game to get to the Sweet 16, he said nobody wanted to cover us, nobody wanted to talk about us, but we are still here. And the way he said it, every time I get emotional talking about it, because anytime I see it, it's who he was, and he just was so adamant. Like, we're still here. This is us. No matter what you want to, how you want to shortchange us, how you want to talk about us, we're here. And I'm shocked he didn't cuss, because Joey had the filthiest mouth, and I'm shocked it wasn't, "We aren't still effing here." But luckily he composed himself, because they could show the video on the jump picture on it. Butler, it lives on, and that's what we wanted our life mantra to be. That's what we wanted our foundation's mantra to be, is we ain't going anywhere. So you get annoyed that we ask you to donate. You might get annoyed that maybe you don't want that weekend to work. We're here to come and support us, but we're still here and we're still doing it. And it's also twofold. Like, he's gone and we wanted our lives to stop in that moment, but that's not how it works. We're still here. We're powering on, and we want people to do it alongside us. We're so lucky to have those people to do it.
Yeah, in some ways, I was at Butler when Joel was playing there. I was a couple years behind him, but I remember those games very well. And something that's been ingrained in me and my classmates, my husband's a Butler athlete as well, was the Butler way, right? And what does the Butler way mean, and what do we do, and how do we act as Bulldogs? And as you're talking about, we are still here, and that stubbornness and that drive and the perseverance that Joel had, to me, it's almost like, well, that's partly the Butler way, because I think still, we struggle with that underdog positioning mentality from others of, well, it's, I think we've come a long way since the 90s, like you said. But what do you think, like, how did you see that play out, for Joel and his teammates and Bulldogs, since then? What's special about that? I mean, it couldn't have just been Joel who believed that, right? I mean, he's the spark.
I think it was truly Chrissio's peak recruiting, when recruiting was literally the thing pre-NIL. You got to recruit young men and women that fit your culture, that you want your place to be. And when programs really excel and really succeed, they've keyed in on the proper pieces that will promote what they believe their program should look like. And so, those guys were my heroes. I mean, Rylan Hanji was like, that's all I wanted to be growing up. Like, this guy was a bad MFer on the court. Like, I wanted to be him. But when you bring in the Darnell Archies, who the chip on their shoulder guy, from small town Indiana, that looks like nothing and was an absolute murderer, sharpshooter on the court. Like, you bring in Brandon Miller, who's not, the ridiculous crossover at crazy speed, jump over everybody, but just could play the game of basketball. When you bring in Mike Monserrat, who can't jump over a stack of papers this much, but just has the IQ and ability and versatility to really hurt you, you just bring in guys. It was a motley crew, not of knuckleheads. These were sharp guys. It was just a motley crew of, they're not going to be the guys at the top, the five-star guys, but they're as good as the five-star guys in the way they approach the game and play it, and they have a chip on their shoulder. And they have a selflessness, and it's what's on this part of the jersey more than what's on the back. And that's how they live life. Like, I remember I got a tattoo because my parents were no kids when you go out to college, no tattoos, and no rap sheet, or you're done. And so two of the three I did all right with. I got a tattoo as soon as I got to college. And I got a basketball with a cross. And my brother made that the worst decision I ever made, because who are you? Like, a cross at a basketball? What are you? A priest at a basketball player? Like, it's just, he was so not about the flash. Like, it was about, go about your business. Like, what do you need, a tattoo? That's not who you are. He was never about the showmanship of it, although he was a very passionate, in-your-face, performance-type guy, but it was always for team first, for teammates first. Like, it wasn't fun for Joey unless everybody was along for the ride. Like, he didn't want to play on a team where he averaged 25 a game and they lost 20 games a year. He wanted to be a guy who could share it a little bit, rebound it a little bit, score it a little bit, and do that alongside four other guys on the floor and 3 or 4 bench guys that could do the same. He wanted to play for a program that was selfless and chip on their shoulder. And that's what that group was, Chrissy, as you remember. And when Butler's at their best, and Coach Mata's getting it back to that, it's when they believe, no matter what conference they're in the Big East, but when they play like their Horizon basketball team. And as long as they keep that mentality that nobody believes that they belong and everyone's against them, even if they're not. But that's how Butler wins. That's the culture. That's the code, the Butler way. They Coach Collier and bringing in guys that believe that. I mean, I skipped over Laval Jordan. I mean, Laval and Rylan, like, that's who I wanted to be. And those guys set a tone, and it kind of moved forward after that. Thomas Jackson too. Like, they had superstars, like guys that, like, if I walk out down the street, Connecticut now, and mention, people don't know them, but they were incredible basketball players, and they set the standard. And Joey just became a great mouthpiece for it. But it came before Joey too. Joey just took it to an extreme level because he was an extreme guy.
We're, the Butler Bulldogs, of course, talked about underdogs. Our mascot is the Moose. So Andrew's nickname was Moose. He was number 44, this big guy, kind of the gentle giant, right? And takes the court, and people are just chanting Moose out there. So our spirit animal of Project 44 is the Moose. If you had a spirit animal, Jordan, what would yours be? And what do you think Joel's would have been?
Oh, man. Oh, this is great. Well, I can tell you Joey's right away would be a bulldog. I mean, because everything about him, he was a bulldog. He believed that he was Butler. I mean, the dude won the Mr. Butler Award when he was there. Like, everything about his life when he arrived on the north side of Indy became, I would honestly say, like, Butler, family, God, in that order. It was like Butler was number one in everything. And he behaved like a freaking bulldog. Like, he was a bulldog. He was meant to be a Butler. So his is easy. Mine, I would say teddy bear. Like, I do have that piece of my brother where, like, we just enjoy being around people. Like, we enjoy the good in life. Like, we lean into what's good. Like, what makes my day is seeing a nicety along the way. Like, we have an edge, sure, no question. I mean, we're athletes, and that's part of the DNA. But at the end of the day, we're soft people. I mean, shit, you guys have had me cry here 2 or 3 times in 15 minutes of talking. That's who we are. So I'd say a teddy bear.
I can also say that there's some teddy bearness in Joel, because, like, if you had the gift of a Joel Cornette hug, he embraced you with his entire self. I mean, every inch of that frame would hug you, and he meant it. And I love feeling that presence just from talking to you and trading texts with you. Like, I get that same feeling of having him here. Okay, as we wrap this up for people who are listening to this podcast, where can they catch you coming up on NBC Sports? And also, how can they follow and contribute to the Joel Cornette Foundation?
Yeah, jcffoundation.com. Make sure you go on, or the joelcornettefoundation.com, excuse me, in support. You can buy some swag. We still have stuff on there. You can feel free to donate. You can follow me on social media. I'm always promoting different things on my Twitter account about it. So definitely we'd love for anybody to tap in. Any amount of money goes a long way. If it's $1, if it's 50 cents, if it's more than that, great. But it's just you can then move on with your day and say you've done something good to promote something and push something forward. I always laugh and think about, Joey's, he would always play the lottery. And I always say, why do you buy a lottery ticket? Like, I always tell him, that stuff's fixed. Like, you're never going to win. And he goes, because I spend the rest of the day thinking about what I do with that money. And so for the couple of dollars I shell out to try and win the lottery, that's worth it for me, because then I envision the rest of the time, like, what am I spend that money on? And that's what it is if you donate to the foundation. Like, I could change overnight because you gave us $5, but you can sit there and move through the day and say, hey, I did something to do some good in the world and help, push this foundation forward. So we would absolutely love that. I forgot the second part of the question because I was too busy clamoring for money for our foundation. But where you can find me, yes, you can find me on NBC Sports. College basketball season is about to get really started here. As everybody listening is massive college basketball fans, because that's what Butler is. You can find me on the coverage for some Big East basketball this year, because NBC now has some Big East basketball. So there's a chance you might see me back in the hollow grounds of Hinkle Fieldhouse, maybe doing a game, which will be incredible. A ton of Big Ten basketball, so I'll be doing that with NBC. But I become a golf guy, so I'm doing a lot of golf on Golf Channel with NBC as well, which my brother would be laughing his ass off because my golf game was horrible back then. But it's definitely improved, and I've become a real student of the game. So you can find me on Golf Channel and NBC golf coverage. And, the NBA is coming around in a year with NBC, and that's something I certainly have my sights on as well. So I'm an NBC Sports guy now moving forward after 8 great years with ESPN.
I think that I can speak for everyone who knew Joel and who knows the Cornette family, that we all felt like we hit the lottery, that we have hit the lottery by having the good fortune of knowing all of you, the positive impact that you make on all of us, the way that Joel inspired all of us to be better, to not be defined by anyone else's expectations or, what the box they put us in, and everything you're doing is so incredible, so inspired by the Cornettes and the Joel Cornette Foundation, and excited for everyone to learn more and to get involved and support all of the incredible work that you guys are doing.
Well, you guys, you've killed me to death, crying nonstop. Cristiello, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys thinking of little old me and our foundation that's doing great stuff. We appreciate it. And For a few moments here, as I talked about the lottery ticket, I get to spend even more time now thinking about my brother, which happens every day, but a little bit more so today. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Jordan. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Finding 44. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Follow Project 44's mission at project44.org and find us on social media at Join Project 44.